What's up, guys? My name is Zach, and today I am driving a 1985 Cadillac Cimarron. Up front is a 2.0 liter inline 4, and down below is a 3-speed automatic transmission. Now, I am super excited to be driving this here Cimarron for a couple of reasons. First of all, I've already done a 1987 Cimarron, but that was the improved one. That was the V6. That was a lot better of a car. This is the pre-facelift that got all the negative press. This is the one that everyone hates. And so I'm excited to dive into the reasons why that is throughout the course of this video. But before we get on to anything else, I have a website, zackpradel.com, where you can buy stickers and other merchandise when it becomes available. You could also submit your own vehicle to be reviewed by me through a quick and easy submission form, and you'd get video of your car just like this one. And you could read my behind the scenes blog to see what I'm filming before it comes out on the channel. But let's get back to that 2-liter inline 4 under the hood. Well, that's where the issues really started for the Cimarron. It's the same exact engine that you would find in the Cavaliers, and I've done a couple of those before of the same generation. You're seeing those on screen right now. It's an iron block inline 4. It makes around 70s, 80s. Kind of depends on the day and how it's feeling. It doesn't make a lot of power. And so Cadillac at the time was known for their smooth V8s. Well, to throw an inline 4 in here was pretty ludicrous. This wasn't the first Cadillac to ever have an inline 4, but it was the first Cadillac since 1916 to have an inline 4. So you can understand when people saw the brochure that they were a little quizzical. Like I said, paired to it is a 3-speed automatic. It's doing fine, it's whatever. But I recently learned that you could also find Cimarrons with the 4-cylinder with a manual transmission. A manual Cadillac is still a very weird concept to me, unless it's a CTS-V. Last but not least, the Cimarron is front-wheel drive. But that's out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have 4 gauges. Off to the left is my speedometer. In the center is my coolant temperature and fuel. And off to the right is my tachometer with the oil pressure and battery voltage inside. These are very plain and simple and copied and pasted from the Cavalier. This whole interior is actually directly copied and pasted from the same year Cavalier, an economy car at the time. So you really notice that right off the bat. The steering wheel does have a Cadillac logo on it, and it has these low grips for a more cruising feel, and it's the same color as the rest of the interior. Off to the left, I have my power mirrors, my Twilight Sentinel, which means automatic headlights, a climate control vent, and the hood release, which is in plain view, something that you don't really see much of anymore. Most automakers hide them. Well, back in the 80s, they weren't so keen on hiding where the hood prop was, so here it is. Moving on to the door, I have my latch to get in and out, my power locks and power windows, all of which are unlabeled. Moving into the center, I get another climate control vent, as well as the Symphony Sound radio. So that was a nice addition that the Cimarron got, was a nicer radio, and it actually still sounds good to this day. Is it on par with the 36 speaker system you could find in the new Escalade Platinums? Not quite, but it still has a nice sound to it. Moving down, then I have my climate controls themselves, which are fantastic. GM has always put oversized heater cores in all of their vehicles. So this will blow you right out of the car. You can almost boil an egg on the dashboard just with the heaters. And I've always loved that about GMs. You could say that about 80s, 90s, and even 2000s GMs. The heaters friggin' work. Then I have the rear defrost off to the left and my 12-volt outlet off to the right. Then I get a cubby and my ashtray. It's an 80s car, you gotta have that, as well as the coin holders down below. And then we come to the shifter itself. It's surrounded by this very nice plate that has this sort of grid look to it, very, very 80s. The shifter itself works well, it's easy to use, it's kind of a GM parts bin part, but hey, what can you do? Then I do get a handbrake and a center armrest, meaning there are no factory cup holders here in the 1985 Cadillac Cimarron, so unfortunately it fails the big friggin' bottle test. The seats are pretty cushiony as well. They are very comfortable. They feel like Cadillac seats you would see in other products that they were making at the time. The Fleetwood, Eldorado, things like that, they are just smaller versions of those seats. So that is very, very Cadillac about this car. However, speaking of seats, we do have back seats, so let's go do a backseat review. All right, so we're in the back of the 1985 Cadillac Cimarron, and this does not feel very caddy back here. First of all, the seat, this is my driving position. My knees are hitting the seat in front of me, something I've never said in a Cadillac, besides the other Cimarron that I reviewed, to be fair. But headroom, not great. As you can see, it does suffer from the very, very typical GM headliner sag. Unfortunately, there is no medication for that. But overall, I don't really get any crazy amenities back here. It's comfy, it's good enough for a Cavalier, but then when you stick that Cadillac name, I always think of getting in the backseat of a Cadillac and just enjoying. But this is a little cramped for that. This is an economy class ticket for Cadillac, which at the end of the day isn't the worst thing in the world, but it is what it is. But now let's hop around back. We'll take a quick look at the trunk and cargo space. Then we'll talk about the looks, and then we'll talk about what the heck this car is and why it even exists. So stay tuned. All right, so we're on the back of the 85 Cimarron. One thing to note before we get into it, this is still the Aero with 2 keys. So square for the ignition, circle for the body. Just come right in here, and it glides open like that. Now, tons of trunk space for a J body, but for a Cadillac, this is a compact. This is nothing compared to the other vehicles that were being made at the time. However, for a little compact sedan, this is actually a pretty good amount of space. I'm really, really happy to see that at least. Again, it's all about frame of reference, frame of mind. We'll talk about that later on with the final thoughts. But if you've ever wondered what the trunk of an 85 Cimarron looks like, well, there it is. Now we got to talk about the looks, and this is also very clearly a Chevy Cavalier. The designers at Cadillac could only really change the grille and the taillights, as well as add different wheels and a little bit of side molding to make this car stand out as its own product. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but I do think that it's a relatively handsome car. I think it looks good. This one's in pretty good shape, especially given its age and being a northern car. It has not had an easy or salt-free life. So I have to give the owner Aaron, as well as previous owners, props for maintaining the body. But now that I've taken you on a thorough tour throughout the 85 Cimarron, let's talk about its importance. Why did this car exist? What is this car? Let's get on to my final thoughts. To understand this car, you have to understand the 1970s. In the 1970s, here in America, and as well as other countries, there were 2 fuel crises. 1973, and then later towards the end of the 70s, was another one. Fuel prices skyrocketed because there were embargoes put on us by the countries that were selling us the fuel. So for the first time in history here in America, fuel was not easy to come by. Ever since its invention in the late 1850s out in Pennsylvania, gasoline was pretty easy to come by. Well, now it wasn't, so car makers had to scramble. There were very few 4-cylinder cars on sale in America because you want more power and you want smoothness, so you go with a V6 or V8 or inline 6 even. So in the late 70s and early 80s, people were desperate for more economical, more efficient cars. And so Cadillac dealers went to Cadillac corporate and said, hey, we need an efficient car. All you're giving us are these V8 land yachts, and people don't want that right now. So Cadillac had under a year to design this car and get it out to the public. And a year might sound like a long time, but in terms of car design, it's really not. They were able to change the headlights and taillights, the grille, and a couple of badges here and there, but then they had to ship it. They had to get the car out the door as soon as humanly possible. That's why it's built off of the same platform as the Cavalier. That's why it shares an engine with the Cavalier, transmission, interior parts, all Cavalier. It's rebadged because it was the quickest and easiest way to get a 4-cylinder car onto the market. But Cadillac did it. They released this car, and it was immediately met with harsh criticism. People didn't like the fact that it only had a 4-cylinder. People thought it was too small. They didn't like the ride quality. It wasn't a true Cadillac. And to the public, they thought that they were getting duped. But it was the same public that was demanding a more efficient Cadillac come to market. And so GM thought that they were filling a hole in the market of someone that wanted a more efficient Cadillac. but at the end of the day, they just alienated more and more of their fan base. Now, there are arguments that could be made that they could have used a different platform, like the N body, but at the end of the day, they didn't. They used the J body, which is this and the Cavalier, as well as the Forenza, Pontiac 2000, and so it tarnished the Cimarron name almost immediately. Oh, it was a cheap, crappy Cadillac. The 1987 that I filmed was actually a pretty nice car. It had a 2.8 liter V6, something that the pre-facelift wasn't offered with. So they gave it a V6 and they made it stand out more. They made it more distinctive as a Cadillac as time went on. But much like when your favorite neighborhood restaurant closes due to health concerns, the name was tarnished. And people didn't go back. People didn't give the facelifted Cimarron a chance because they had already been so badly hurt by this. This car flopped, and it flopped pretty hard. But it's all around not a bad car. This isn't a bad automobile experience for the 1980s. But if you go to a Michelin star restaurant and they give you a double quarter pounder with cheese, you're gonna feel a little duped. You're gonna be a little upset. However, if you got that same quarter pounder with cheese at midnight after driving for 10 hours with no food in your stomach, it's gonna seem like a beacon of hope. You're gonna savor that. It's all about frame of mind. So with the Cadillac badge paired up to its Cadillac siblings with the smooth, luscious V8s, yeah, this car looks like the runt of the family. But as an actual car, getting out and driving one, it's fun, it's great. Handles these back roads of Wisconsin quite well. I enjoy it. But Cadillac buyers at the time, not so much. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Huge thank you to Aaron for letting me take out his Cadillac Cimarron, his other Cimarron. This was such a cool experience. This is the one that got all the hate. This is the one that tarnished the Cimarron name. And it's so cool to be driving a piece of GM history like that. But I do have one more farewell. And so with the publishing of this video, this is my final car review for 2022. 2022 has been an absolutely amazing year here on the channel. I've almost doubled my subscriber count from 50 to 100,000 subscribers. And that is all thank you to you and people like Aaron. If you've lent me your car this year, you have my sincerest thank you. None of this would have been possible without you guys, and I am so incredibly excited for 2023. But with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video of the Cimarron. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and for the last time in 2022, subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.